Welcome back, everybody. Today we're taking a deep dive into the protect function of the NIST Cybersecurity Framework.
The NIST CSF.
You
Yeah.
know, it's like we figured out where all the crown jewels are, what an organization really needs to keep safe.
Right.
And now we're gonna figure out how to build an impenetrable fortress around all of that stuff.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
The NIST CSF, as you know, really it's all about creating a solid cybersecurity strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And it breaks that down into 5 core functions.
Mm-hmm.
Identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover.
Okay.
And so we've already spent some time exploring the identify phase
Right.
in a previous deep dive where we kind of looked at what needs to be protected.
Yeah.
Now we're going to roll up our sleeves and really get into taking action, putting those safeguards in place.
Okay, so let's kind of unpack this protect function. And it seems like access control is kind of a fundamental piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you wouldn't want just anybody walking into, the server room or just, messing around with data,
Right.
sensitive data. Right.
Absolutely. Access control is really all about making sure that only authorized individuals have access to sensitive information and systems.
Right.
And it's not even, just about keeping, the bad guys out, so to speak.
Right.
It's also about making sure that, employees don't accidentally access or modify data that they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Which, believe it or not, happens, more than you might think.
Oh, yeah, I can totally see that happening. You accidentally click the wrong link or open an attachment you shouldn't.
Right.
And boom, sensitive data's out there. So how do organizations go about making sure that that doesn't happen? What are some of the tools that they have in their access control toolkit?
Well, one of the key principles here is something called least privilege.
What?
And that means that individuals should only have access to the information and systems that they absolutely need to do their jobs.
Yeah.
Think of it like, a surgical team.
Right.
You wouldn't want the anesthesiologist, trying to perform the surgery.
Right.
Each person has a specific role and needs access only to the tools and information relevant to that role.
Makes total sense. So it's about creating these carefully defined boundaries, like digital walls within the organization,
Right.
to make sure everybody kind of stays in their lane. But how do you actually enforce those boundaries? I mean, is it all just about passwords and usernames?
Well, passwords are definitely a part of it,
Yeah.
but they're, not really enough on their own these days.
Right.
That's why, you see organizations increasingly relying on things like multi-factor authentication, which requires, users to provide multiple forms of verification.
Right.
Like a password and a one-time code sent to their phone or something.
Yeah.
To prove their identity. It really adds that extra layer of security to make sure that even if somebody does get their hands on a password, they can't access the system without that second factor.
Okay, got it. So it's like a double lock on your front door. It's not foolproof, but, it makes it a lot harder for somebody to get in. But access control is just one aspect of the protect function, right? What about the data itself?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you protect sensitive information once it's actually inside, that digital fortress?
Well, you've hit on another really crucial element. It's data protection.
Right.
So we're talking about safeguarding information both when it's in transit,
Okay.
when it's moving across networks,
Yeah.
and at rest when it's stored on, servers or devices.
Right.
And this goes beyond just, keeping hackers out.
Mm-hmm.
Think about things like, accidental deletion or hardware failures,
Yeah.
or even natural disasters.
Right.
Data needs to be protected against all sorts of threats,
Yeah.
both internal and external.
So it's kind of about having a backup plan, a safety net, in case something goes wrong.
Right.
Like having a spare tire in your car.
Exactly.
Hopefully you never need it, but
Right.
you're sure glad you have it when you do.
Exactly. Data backups are absolutely essential. Organizations need to regularly back up their critical data
Right.
and, ideally store those backups in a separate location
Okay.
so that, you're protected against things like fires or floods.
Right. Okay. But backups are just, one part of that data protection equation.
Yeah, they're an important piece.
Oh, right. I bet encryption is a big part of it too, right? It's kind of like putting all that sensitive data in a secret code
Exactly.
that only authorized people can decipher.
You got it. Encryption is a really fundamental part of data protection.
Yeah.
It's like, scrambling the data into an unreadable format
Right.
so that even if somebody manages to access it, they can't actually make any sense of it without the encryption key. And there are, different types of encryption out there. Some are designed for data in transit, others for data at rest.
Okay.
You know.
Wow, it's getting pretty technical. So it sounds like there's a whole science to this data protection thing.
There is, yeah.
With different tools and strategies depending on the situation.
Absolutely. And, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah.
The specific data protection measures, an organization implements.
Right.
It's going to depend on, the type of data they're handling, the industry they're in, and their overall risk tolerance.
Yeah.
For example, a healthcare organization dealing with sensitive patient information
Right.
is going to have much stricter data protection requirements
Yeah.
than, say, a retail company that's just storing customer email addresses.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Okay. It's starting to kind of see how all these pieces fit together. We've got access control, managing who gets in and what they can do. We've got data protection, safeguarding that information itself. But what about, I guess, the fortress itself? The systems and networks that house all this valuable data.
Yeah, that's where system and network security come in.
Okay.
Think of it as like the moat and the walls around your digital castle, right?
Ah.
You want to make it as difficult as possible for unauthorized individuals to gain entry.
Okay.
And that involves multiple layers of defense.
So I'm imagining like layers of security, kind of like a medieval castle,
Yeah.
with archers on the walls, maybe some boiling oil pouring down, a moat with crocodiles.
Well, maybe not quite that dramatic.
Right.
But yeah, you're on the right track.
Okay.
We're talking about things like, firewalls, which act as a barrier
Yeah.
between your network and the outside world,
Yeah.
blocking unauthorized traffic.
So firewalls are like the gatekeepers. They
Yeah.
carefully screen who gets in and who gets bounced.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you have, intrusion detection and prevention systems,
Okay.
which constantly monitor network traffic for any suspicious activity. It's like having security cameras that can spot potential intruders and even take action to stop them.
Got it. So it's like a proactive defense system.
Yeah.
Constantly on the lookout for any threats.
Precisely. And then there's, good old-fashioned antivirus and anti-malware software,
Right.
which scans your systems for known threats and helps prevent malicious code from infecting your devices.
So it's kind of like, a team of guards patrolling the castle grounds, looking for any signs of trouble.
Exactly.
So we've got, kind of a multi-layered defense system,
Yeah.
each layer kind of reinforcing the next. But I'm guessing that even with all of these, kind of technical safeguards in place, there's still one element that can make or break a cybersecurity strategy,
Yeah.
and that's the human factor.
You're absolutely right. We can have, the most sophisticated technology in the world, but if employees aren't trained to use it properly
Right.
and follow, safe data handling practices,
Yeah.
all those defenses can just crumble like a house of cards.
It's kind of funny. We spend all this time, building these elaborate digital fortresses, but so often it's the human element, right?
It's true.
That ends up being the weakest link.
Think about it. Even the most well-defended castle can be compromised, right?
Right.
If somebody forgets to lock a gate or leaves a window open,
Right.
and, the same principle applies in cybersecurity. All it takes is one careless click on a phishing email
Yeah.
or one weak password or, one instance of sharing sensitive information inappropriately.
Yeah.
And suddenly all those layers of security we just talked about,
Right.
they can be bypassed.
So it's not just about having the right technology in place. It's also about making sure people know how to use it right, safely and responsibly.
That's where training and awareness come in.
Right.
Organizations really need to educate their employees about, cybersecurity threats and best practices.
Yeah.
Things like how to spot phishing emails, how to create strong passwords, how to handle sensitive data appropriately,
Okay.
and how to report suspicious activity.
Okay. I guess it's kind of like, driver's education for the digital world,
Right.
right?
That's a great analogy.
Making sure everyone knows the rules of the road before they get behind the wheel.
Yeah. Just like, you wouldn't want somebody driving a car without proper training.
Right.
You don't want employees navigating the digital landscape without understanding the potential risks
Right.
and how to mitigate them.
Yeah.
And, the training shouldn't just be a one-time thing either.
Oh, right.
It needs to be ongoing, right?
Oh.
Evolving as new threats emerge and technology changes.
Okay, so we've got our, our digital fortress built. Our guards are trained. They're vigilant.
Right.
But we can't just assume that everything's going to be fine from here on out, right?
Exactly.
Things change, new threats pop up.
Right.
And even the strongest defenses can be breached.
Yeah. That's why the protect function also emphasizes, ongoing maintenance and testing. Think of it like, regular checkups for your car.
Yeah.
You wouldn't wait till your engine explodes to take it to the mechanic, right?
Right.
You get regular oil changes, tune-ups,
Yeah.
inspections to make sure everything is running smoothly.
Yeah.
And to catch any potential problems early on.
So in the cybersecurity world, what does that maintenance actually look like?
Right.
Is it just making sure that your software is up to date and your firewalls are configured correctly?
That's part of it, but it's also about, proactively identifying and addressing any potential vulnerabilities.
Okay.
That's where things like vulnerability assessments and penetration testing come in.
Okay. I've heard those terms thrown around before.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what they mean.
Okay.
Can you kind of bring that down for us?
Sure. So a vulnerability assessment is basically like a comprehensive inspection of your systems and applications.
Yeah.
Looking for, any known weaknesses or security gaps that attackers could potentially exploit.
Okay.
It's kind of like, hiring a home inspector to check out a house before you buy it.
Right.
They're looking for any structural problems, electrical issues, plumbing leaks, anything that could cause trouble down the line.
Yeah.
A vulnerability assessment does the same thing, but for your digital assets.
So it's about finding those potential problems before they become like actual breaches.
Exactly. It's about being proactive, not reactive.
Right.
And once you know what those vulnerabilities are,
Right.
then you can actually take steps to fix them. Patching software, strengthening configurations, and implementing, additional security measures just to shore up your defenses.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about penetration testing? How does that fit into the picture?
So penetration testing, or pen testing as it's often called, kind of takes vulnerability assessment a step further.
Okay.
It's like hiring an ethical hacker to actually try to break into your systems.
Right.
And they use, the same techniques and tools as real attackers to see if they can find any ways to bypass your defenses.
So it's kind of like a controlled attack, a way to test your defenses in a real-world scenario.
Precisely. It's like running a fire drill, right?
Yeah.
To make sure everyone knows what to do in case of an emergency.
Right.
And, the pen testers, they will actually provide you with a detailed report.
Okay.
Outlining any vulnerabilities they found, how they exploited them, and, recommendations for how to fix them.
Wow, that's really valuable information.
It is.
It's like having a blueprint for how to strengthen your defenses, showing you exactly where the weak points are and how to reinforce them.
Exactly. And remember, the cybersecurity landscape is constantly changing.
Right.
New threats are emerging all the time. Attackers are always finding new ways to exploit vulnerabilities.
Right.
So regular maintenance and testing aren't just recommended.
Yeah.
They're absolutely essential.
So it's not just a set it and forget it kind of deal.
No.
You need to constantly be on your toes, adapting and improving your defenses as that threat landscape evolves.
That's exactly right. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
A continuous cycle of evaluating your defenses, identifying weaknesses, and implementing solutions to strengthen your security posture.
We've been talking about all these, different elements of the protect function. And I'm getting the feeling that it's not just about technology, right?
And that's it.
It's about fostering a culture of security within an organization.
Absolutely.
Right.
Technology is an important part of it,
Right.
but it's not the whole story.
Yeah.
You need to have the right people, the right processes, and the right mindset to truly protect your organization from cyber threats.
So it's about creating an environment where everyone understands, the importance of cybersecurity and takes responsibility for their role in, protecting the organization's assets.
Precisely. It's about making cybersecurity everyone's responsibility. From the CEO to the newest intern.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. But even with the most robust protect strategy in place, there's always a chance that something could slip through the cracks, right?
Yep.
I mean, attackers are getting more sophisticated all the time.
Right.
And no system is 100% foolproof.
You're right. And that's why the protect function is just one piece of the NIST Cybersecurity Framework puzzle. It's about building a strong defense.
Right.
But it's also essential to have mechanisms in place to detect and respond to any attacks that do occur.
And that brings us to, I guess, the next stage of that NIST CSF, the detect function, right?
Precisely. The detect function is all about vigilance.
Yeah.
Being able to identify those warning signs that an attack may have occurred, or is in progress.
Okay.
It's about having the tools, the processes, and the expertise to monitor your systems and networks,
Yeah.
analyze data, and spot those anomalies that could indicate a breach.
I'm already intrigued. It sounds like we're moving from building fortifications to like setting up surveillance systems,
Exactly.
becoming digital detectives.
And that's where our next deep dive will take us.
Oh, wow.
Exploring the world of cybersecurity detection,
Okay.
uncovering the secrets of threat intelligence,
Right.
and understanding how organizations can stay one step ahead of those ever-evolving cyber threats.
Well, I'm definitely ready to put on my detective hat.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up this part of our, deep dive, I think it's worth revisiting the key elements of the protect function.
Sure.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, so to recap, the protect function is all about proactively safeguarding your organization's critical assets. So that means implementing strong access controls,
Right.
limiting, who can access what,
Yeah.
protecting data, both in transit and at rest, using tactics like encryption and backups,
Right.
and, really fortifying your systems and networks
Yeah.
with those multiple layers of defense we talked about, like firewalls and intrusion detection systems.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not just about the tech.
Mm.
We need to train those employees to be cyber aware
Right.
and understand their role in keeping things secure.
It's about creating a culture of security where everyone's empowered to be like a guardian of that digital fortress.
That's a great way to put it.
It's about creating a security conscious environment where everybody understands how important their role is
Yeah,
in protecting the organization's assets.
exactly. And that's what makes the protect function so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a set of, technical controls.
Right.
It's a holistic approach that really addresses that human element as well.
It's funny. I keep thinking back to that analogy of cybersecurity being like building a house, right?
Right.
We talked about the strong foundation, the sturdy walls, the solid roof. But now I'm thinking it's also about having a well-informed and vigilant homeowner, right? Who's actively involved in keeping the house safe.
You can have the most secure house in the world, but if the homeowner leaves the door unlocked or the windows open,
Right.
it's all for naught.
Yeah.
Same goes for cybersecurity, right? You need to have that combination of strong defenses and a security-aware culture to really protect your organization.
It's interesting, as we've been talking about all these different, elements of protect, it's not just about preventing attacks.
Yeah.
It's about building resilience.
Yeah.
It's making sure that even if an attack does occur, the organization can withstand it, minimize the damage, and recover quickly.
That's a really great point.
It's all about being prepared, right?
It is. The protect function is about creating a resilient cybersecurity posture so that the organization can continue operating even when, things go wrong.
Right, when they face adversity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about minimizing the impact of cyber attacks and ensuring business continuity.
Okay, so we've built our digital fortress, we've trained our guards, we've established this, culture of security.
Yeah.
But what happens when, the inevitable occurs? An attacker manages to breach our defenses. Because no matter how strong our protect strategy is, there's always that chance, right?
Yeah.
That something could slip through.
You're absolutely right. No system is 100% impenetrable. And that's why the protect function is just one part of a comprehensive cybersecurity strategy. It lays the groundwork, really, for the next critical stage of the NIST CSF, which is the detect function.
And that's where things get really interesting. We're moving from, building defenses to becoming like digital detectives.
Right.
Learning to identify those, subtle clues that an attack is underway.
Exactly. The detect function is all about vigilance. Right?
Yeah.
Being able to spot those warning signs that something isn't right. It's about having the right tools and processes in place to monitor your systems and networks.
Yeah.
Analyze data for those anomalies and identify those indicators of compromise that could signal a breach.
It sounds like we're stepping into the world of threat intelligence. Like, how do we anticipate and outmaneuver those attackers?
In a way, yeah, the detect function is about understanding the threat landscape, recognizing the tactics and techniques that attackers use, and being able to identify those patterns of malicious activity. It's like learning to read the enemy's playbook so you can anticipate their next move.
So while the protect function is, about building that strong defense,
Right.
the detect function is about developing those like keen observational skills.
Yeah.
Those spidey senses that tell us that something's amiss.
Exactly.
And that's where our next deep dive will take us, right?
Precisely. We'll delve into the fascinating world of cybersecurity detection, exploring the tools, techniques, and strategies used by organizations to identify and respond to cyber threats.
I can't wait. Sounds like an exciting adventure. But before we embark on that journey, let's recap the key takeaways from this deep dive into Protect.
Absolutely. So the protect function of the NIST CSF is a really crucial step in creating a robust cybersecurity strategy.
Yeah.
It's about taking proactive steps to safeguard your organization's critical assets,
Right.
implementing layers of defense, and fostering that security-aware culture we discussed.
Building a resilient digital fortress,
Yes.
training our guards,
Mm-hmm.
and being prepared for the unexpected.
Well said. And remember,
Oh.
it's not a one-time effort. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah,
Continuous improvement,
right.
adapting and evolving as that threat landscape changes.
Because the only constant in cybersecurity is change,
Right.
right? But at least with, the knowledge and tools that we've gained from this deep dive,
Yeah,
we can face those challenges,
absolutely.
with confidence, knowing that we're, building a more secure and resilient digital future.
That's a great way to put it. So until our next deep dive where we explore the world of detect, stay curious, stay vigilant, and keep those digital fortresses strong.
Yeah, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Protect function of the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. We hope you found it insightful, and empowering. Until next time, stay safe and stay secure.